It's going to be a bad weekend for Rutgers athletics. Another fall, another bad time of the year for Rutgers athletics as we fall to Central Connecticut State by 13 points at home, 67-54, as a 15.5-point favorite. What is the fifth game in a row we were favored by 15.5 points or more, 3 games by 18.5 points, and this is what we have to show for it. And it doesn't get better as this weekend we head into the shoe to face number 1 Ohio State. We'll get to that in a second. That's a 32-point underdog, and that's probably an understatement. You had to see this coming, right? Yeah, we were 4-0 and we won those games, but there were times throughout those games that those teams were closer and made runs. Then it made it closer than it should have been throughout these games. We struggled at times. I don't want to say struggled, but there were times against Maine, Lehigh, and American that we had the opportunities to run them out off the court, and they crawled back into it and made the game closer than it should have been. In my last video, I warned about Central Connecticut State giving us a problem because they beat Boston College, and I don't see us being any better than Boston College. I don't know, what are they, 2-2, 3-2, Boston College, whatever they are. But Central Connecticut State beat a Power 4 team. And that signaled trouble for me because this is the kind of team, I don't care what the Ken Palm is, that doesn't matter to me. Toric doesn't matter. Those are abstract, predictive models that don't necessarily reflect what goes on the court. And by the way, Boston College did a better job than me. They lost in the last 3 seconds by 1 point, 60-59 against Central Connecticut State. Now maybe down the road, maybe Central Connecticut State turns out to be pretty good. We say, okay, it's not a terrible loss, good defense, blah, 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 whatever. You still have to win. If you had any chance for salvaging the season, yes, salvaging the season after 4 or 5 games. And when I talked about how Rutgers struggled at times throughout the first few games, it was odd to me because the old bugaboos, the issues that we typically go through, didn't surface. No, we weren't terrible for 3. We weren't terrible from a free throw line. We weren't turning the ball over. I mean, all those things that typically hurt us weren't at the forefront. Alas, in this game, all those things came back. Not just a couple things, one thing here, one thing there. That basket of flaws that Rutgers basketball historically, culturally have committed came back. We shot 36%, 26% from 3. Going long stretches without scoring. I need more caffeine. I need more than caffeine, quite frankly. Rutgers athletics has given me more gray hairs by the day. We were out-rebounded by a smaller team, 41-37. Now, I talked about in the last couple games, when we out-rebound, especially lesser competition, on the Rutgers Steve Peichel model of playing defense, half-court basketball, we should win. We got out-rebounded and we lost, and we lost by double digits. Out-assisted 15-10. We gave up 12 points on turnovers. Smaller team had more blocks. They had more steals. We only got now free throws being a bugaboo for us. That wasn't the problem as far as percentage is concerned, but we only got to the line 10 times. And we made 7 of them. 70% for us, that's like groundbreaking. The one thing I've been talking about all season, and it looks like every team, when FCS teams are like challenging you to stop them from shooting threes, you know that's a problem. Actually came up in the press conference with Steve Peichel, and he got really annoyed by it. He said, I don't even want to say feisty. This is an exasperated Steve Peichel. And when he starts talking about we got to find the right guys aren't on the floor. They can't defend the three. It's not just this year. It's last year, year before that. I mean, teams know they're just going to hoist it up. I'll be honest with you. At 66 years old, I can probably hit some threes against this defense. And if it's like, we've had bad losses in the past, football and basketball. I don't want to overreact. We've lost to UMass. We've lost to Lafayette. The St. Bonaventure loss, which we thought was the end. 1-3 St. Bonaventure team. They beat us by 6 points. But they led double digits throughout. That game kind of made it a little closer in the end. But that St. Bonaventure team went on to be 19-12. And I think they might have won their conference. They were, played in the conference champ, whatever it was. But even still, as a Big Ten program, you got to beat those teams. And Central Connecticut State led throughout. From the middle of the first half on, they led throughout. You kept waiting for us. Okay, we're playing around like the other games. We'll let we'll play around with them. Let them have delusions of grandeur. But no, we got the 3 points down to 3 points in the second half. Young guys came in, as Coach said. They gave us some energy. I want to see more of that. Get some of the young guys in there. Mike, you need to be better. I'm okay with the rebuild with younger, more energetic guys. And I've been talking about Caden Powers as my under-the-radar guy that should do well. And Mike and Richie from the Night Report actually talked about him yesterday and how they've gotten reports out of practice, which, there's Greg Schiano lockdowns, type of lockdowns on basketball practice. But Caden Powers, I'm not saying he's going to be the guy that's able to create his own shot, but he's a guy that can score and shoot well. We'll get to that in a second. Nonetheless, trailing to Central Connecticut State throughout is a bad look. As I talked about, we got to within 3. Chris Newilly, Bryce Storch, Caden Powers, Lena Marks came in, gave us some energy, but they didn't have the production and the scoring that we needed. I think between them we had like 8 points. Yeah, they give you some energy, they give you some spark, some hope, but it's all about the production, and we don't have that. We just don't have it. And as I talked about in my last video, the inconsistency we have. Guys having great first half, doing nothing in the second half. It's one guy one game, another guy next. I don't know if that's a cohesion, chemistry kind of thing, or is it just that we don't have the talent, enough talent where the guys that are supposed to be the guys can be consistent game in, game out. I don't know if that's the case. Dylan Grant, who was the guy by default who was going to be the guy for us, he had 6 points on 2 for 10 shooting. Agboli, he had 6 points, but he had 10 rebounds. J. Mike, no factor. You're a leader. You're a guy that you trust to be able to defend. Steve Pikel wants guys to defend, and I don't blame him. That's his style. We switched last year. We went to an offensive focused team for obvious reasons, and it didn't work out. We stunk. But J. Mike had 2 points in 32 minutes. Darren Buchanan, I can't figure out why he's not getting more playing time. Is there, what's up with that? Got off to a good start to the season. Another guy that might have a bad first half, good second half. 2 points in 9 minutes. Why no playing time? If anybody has insights on that, I'd like to know. Of course, with Greg Schiano and Steve Pikel, sometimes, roster playing time is something that's a state secret. The only guy that came to play was the guy at the beginning of the season that most watchers of the program and the guys that cover Rutgers were skeptical about because of his lack of efficiency and volume type shooting as Tariq Francis. Now, if you notice with Tariq, he had 19 points on 7 of 16 shooting. That's pretty productive. Now, of course, he's really productive against these lower level teams, but that's okay. You can torch them and you can be serviceable against the Big Ten. That's okay. I take it. And, watching the guys on the night report, there was debate going back and forth on the forums and X and the like about bad losses. And I think it's a little bit of recency bias where they think this is like the worst loss ever. And we've had a lot of bad losses. Lafayette, UMass, talked about St. Bonaventure. But the fact that this was a double-digit loss, that we were behind most of the game, rubs a lot of people the wrong way and are on the Steve Pikel seat is very, very, very warm right now. And I love Steve Pikel. Like Coach Schiano, good guy, good face of the program, isn't going to say dumb shit, isn't going to be controversial, has a way that they go about their business. Yeah, you could say it's kind of old school, but hey, look, I'm an OG. I remember Rutgers 1976, and I've told this story before, Rutgers losing to Michigan in the Final Four. All local guys. There was no NIL. Eddie Jordan, Hollis Copeland, Phil Sellers, Jammin' James Bailey. Somehow, we were an independent then. Somehow we got to a Final Four with all local guys going up against the big boys. I don't know what it is. I talk about Coach Schiano and scheme and play calling and getting guys in the position and other teams. Indiana talked about this ad nauseum. 75. They're number 75 in recruiting. And they were able to turn it into a number 2 team in the nation. Number 75 recruiting and a bunch of James Madison transfers. What are we doing? BYU is destroying, in basketball, BYU is destroying people. Top 10 team. I don't even know what to say anymore. If we had any chance at respectability, look, if we went 15-17 this year without 2 top 5 NBA lottery picks, that would be seen as a big win. We're not going to get there. We needed to win this, go to Vegas. Okay, we're not beating Tennessee. We're not beating Michigan. Probably not beating Notre Dame. But if you want to talk about a name brand program, that if we can get a win, it would look good on paper. And then after that, you got, Seton Hall. You get a win against Seton Hall, Notre Dame, lose to Tennessee, Michigan, Purdue. Okay. It's not ideal, but you take the wins where you can get them. After that, we got Seton Hall, we got Penn, Delaware State. I mean, if you get those 3 wins, right? We come out of Vegas and we're 4-4. You get those 3 wins, we're back to 7-4, and then it's in conference. It's Ohio State, Illinois, ranked Illinois, Oregon, ranked Wisconsin, Iowa, and Indiana, and Michigan State. And ranked Michigan State. That decides the season right there. There's not going to be a lot of wins in that Big Ten lineup. But if you can get a win against like an Oregon people get mad when I say Oregon instead of Oregon. It's not Ginn, but nonetheless, get a win against Oregon. Maybe you get lucky against Ohio State. We've had some controversy with them in the past. Iowa always gives us a problem whether they're really good or not. I remember being at the RAC several years ago where we were behind. We took a lead late. We thought we had the game, and then Iowa throws up a shot at the buzzer. The ball bounces off the rim. Goes in after Geo Baker had put us ahead. Nonetheless, that stretch after Seton Hall, Penn, and Delaware State will define the season. Not so much will we have a winning season or not, but how bad we will be, how competitive we will be, and what the team is going to look like at the end. So, once again, Rutgers disappointment. Steve Peichel in his post-game presser, guys from the night reports, said he looked kind of, downtrodden. I don't think he was down. I think he was agitated. He wasn't blowing smoke and taking all positives out of the game. He was saying they didn't have the talent on the floor to be able to compete. He's got to find guys that can play and defend the 3. And it was a different kind of Steve Peichel that we're not used to. He was visibly agitated. You can see he was really annoyed. I don't know if that's good or bad. It wasn't a fiery kind of thing. It was kind of like a frustrated kind of thing, and that kind of worries me. And I've said at the beginning, believe it, I think this team, once again, we have enough talent. These guys aren't all schleps. A lot of these guys are pretty damn good. It's a matter of being able to devise schemes that you can get productivity out of them consistently. No one thinks they were going to be in the top 10 of the Big Ten. Guys on the night report yesterday said they absolutely think this is the worst team in the Big Ten. Some say Penn State. I think Penn State's going to be with some problems, by the way. Look, Penn State's a football, wrestling school, a little bit of hockey. But we're in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. We should be able to find the Phil Sellers, the Eddie Jordans, the Eugene Dabneys, the Hollis Copelands. I mean, I'm sure if we go to a playground in New York and New Jersey, we can put 5 guys together that can play winning basketball. That being said, tough weekend. I'm not going to bother doing an Ohio State review because there's nothing to review. It doesn't get easier for us as we go to the shoe against Ohio State. Newsflash, Ohio State's pretty good. And we're not. Number 1 in the nation. I think they've led from throughout. I think they were number 1 throughout. They have a Heisman candidate at quarterback, which is really insane. They have a Heisman candidate at wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, a top 10 pick at wide receiver with Cornell Tate. have a top 10 pick at safety with Caleb Downs. They have a top 5 pick at linebacker with Arvell Reese. So, yeah, you know, you want a good bet? The 55-point under might be, you might want to bet the over on that, because Ohio State, unless Ryan Day calls off the Dogs, probably get 55 on their own. So there's not much to go over there. But hey, 2026 class lands a 6'4", 210 wide receiver from Colonia, AJ Wortman. Colonia, where Eric LeGrand is from. Pretty impressive stuff from a production standpoint. I wasn't able to catch any sort of rating or stars or the like. 101 catches, 1,300 yards. I want to say it was number one in New Jersey, maybe number 2 or number 5 in the country. 15 touchdowns, 5 games with 11 receptions or more. On defense, 15 tackles, 2 interceptions, pick 6, punt return for a touchdown. He's exactly one of those tweener kind of guys that, Rutgers and Greg Schiano might have a position switch to him, maybe linebacker, defensive end. But I don't know. I would, even though, I don't know about he's classified as an athlete. I don't know about his speed and whether he fits an elite scouting profile for guys that are looking for an elite skill set. But this is the kind of guy that you can just kind of plug in there on offense, and you don't expect much because of his lack of athletic credentials, but is really productive. So I wouldn't be real quick to put him in at linebacker and see what happens. The guys on the night report were talking about, well, maybe he's not 6'4", maybe he's 6'2", 6'3". But if he grows into 6'3", 6'4", 215, 220 pounds, either he will be the next productive and outstanding Rutgers wide receiver, becoming wide receiver U, or he will transition over to defense. I have a feeling he might transition over to defense. Nonetheless, he took visits to Maine and UMass, and he decided, I think I'll go to Rutgers. And as bad as things are here as far as expectations, UMass is not going to be a thing. And Maine seems to be in the hunt for a lot of recruits. That's kind of strange. Nonetheless, he didn't get a lot of love, injured his junior year. So he was able to get a productive senior year. Only the second New Jersey recruit out of 2026. That wall is crumbling around New Jersey. He joins Cameron Green as the only other New Jersey recruit. Hopefully he's an under-the-radar guy that and a hidden gem that produces, and I love those kind of guys. And you turn around a few years from now and you can say, oh, this is a guy who wasn't widely recruited, he was 1-star, 2-star, whatever, 3-star, whatever he was, and he turned into something else. So hopefully that's the case with AJ. Nonetheless, everybody, it's not going to be a good weekend for Rutgers athletics. Thanksgiving coming up. And we wish all of you a very happy, safe, bountiful, and thankful Thanksgiving season. I just love this time of the year. It's fall, it's football, it's basketball, it's food, it's family, it's friends. Absolutely outstanding. Nonetheless, have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy your week. And we will see you the next time.